Hello, friends and readers. So, we are going to start talking about poetry. Well, what is poetry? Poetry is when a poem is created by putting words together in an interesting way to express feelings, create a mental picture, tell a story, or make a sound. Poetry entertains the ears and the eyes. So, there are different types of poems that we're going to go over. Poetry is something that you guys are very familiar with, but sometimes you don't realize it. Poems are anything that has rhyme. Sometimes it doesn't. It's just a special way that it's written. Dr. Seuss is a poet that you've probably read before, but you just didn't realize it was poetry written in a story form. Also, all those little rhymes you know from the child, the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Those are rhymes and poems as well. So, poetry is all around us in different ways that sometimes we don't even realize. So, they're everywhere. Poems can be found in books, they can be found in stories. Where the Sidewalks Ends is a collection of different poems by Shel Silverstein, which you might have read in your lower grades as well. So poetry is something that's not new, but we're going to be looking at it with another lens. So the parts of poems that we're going to start focusing on is that poems have stanzas. A stanza in a poem is like a paragraph in an essay. So we've covered what paragraphs look like. So in a poem, it's called a stanza. It's a chunk of sentences or lines that are collected together, and it kind of looks like a paragraph. A stanza is usually separated by blank space, like you can see here. Common stanza lengths are 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8 lines. So a lot of times in poems, we will also see patterns. So stanzas are the chunks of lines. A line is an individual piece or sentence that is in a poem. Sometimes poems use punctuations like periods and question marks. Sometimes they don't. In poems, we do not need to follow the standard grammar where we use capitals and periods and things like that. Authors can skip the period, they can skip the punctuations and kind of let their poem flow. So a line is kind of the one sentence. So rain and wind and rain. That's one line in this poem. This whole thing put together is a stanza. So the line is the individual sentence per se, and the stanza is the whole piece. A verse is similar to a line, but it might not be a full sentence. So a verse is, though they ran, they might and main. In this verse, it's a little sentence, it's a piece. Sometimes verses repeat themselves. So those are the parts of the poems. Elements of poetry are rhyme. Rhyme is when we repeat a sound and we hear it at the end, normally, of a sentence. So snow and go, do into, go in snow. So we have the rhyming words that tell us a pattern and that keep us engaged in our poem. Then we have rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme is a pattern that is a poem. So snow and go rhyme, do and to, but then the snow and go rhyme again. So the rhyme scheme is A, B, B, A. So the first 2 lines rhyme, the second 2 lines rhyme, and then the last 2 lines rhyme again, but they rhyme with the first 2. So this is a little bit more complex. This can determine the rhythm of a poem and how it goes. So snow and sleet and snow and sleet and snow. Will the winter never go? What do begging children do with no fire to cuddle to? perhaps with nowhere too warm to go, snow and sleet and snow and sleet and snow. So the rhythm in the rhyme in this is in a pattern. Now, the rhythm is a regular pattern of repetition, and it gives you the flow and the sound that we are looking for in the poem. Rhythm is like a beat in music and can give poetry a musical sound. So it's that up, down, the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. So that's the rhythm that keeps us singing along with it. Some poems do have rhythm, some do not. Again, these are some different types of poetry. Poetries usually have some type of rhythm, but not always. The ones that don't are called free verse. And free verse or unrhythmed poems do not rhyme. They are just giving us a story in different pieces and just flow in a different type of way, but not through rhyme or rhythm. In poems, you might see things like onomatopoeias. This is a really big word, but I know it is taught in our kindergarten poetry unit. So onomatopoeias are those sounds and noises and bang, crash, bash. So this is the fourth by Shel Silverstein, and this poem goes, "Oh crash, my bash, it bangs the zang, fourth whoosh of boomerang, July, woo." So this poem has onomatopoeias, those sound noises. Similes is something we're going to get into when we go farther into poetry, but similes are when a poet uses comparisons of two objects or more using the words like and as. The ice cream was as cold as a freezer. So you're comparing things that are both cold, and then you're giving your reader an idea of what it might be like. So we're using like or as when we use similes. When we use metaphors, we are comparing two objects, but we are not using like or as. So you're just looking at things like, he has the heart of a lion. You're comparing a person to a lion, but you're not using the like or as. He is as brave as a lion. So again, there's no like or as. So metaphors are something you see in poetry as well. So we are going to start diving into some different poems, and as a reader, I want you guys to take your time, read them over. Sometimes poems are hard to read because of the rhythm and the rhyme. As you could see, I stumbled a little bit as I was reading those poems, but you kind of step back and look for what the rhythm is, what the rhyme is, and make sure you're reading it as it's intended. So have fun and get started.